So why this series and why now? Excellent questions. So this whole series came from things that I've been thinking about since I was in my early 20s. I was leading a college ministry, and one of the big questions that college students have is, what does it look like to be a single person in the world today? And I had some theories and some ideas that my 22-year-old self shared and had mixed reviews from the people around me, but I'm telling you, over the past 18 years or so, as I've continued to unpack them, they hold a lot of water, because as I look at the pages of the Bible, these themes and ideas, they just keep on coming. And then I read this book called The New Rules for Love, Sex, and Dating, and a lot of the ideas came from this book. So if you're here and you think, wow, this is pretty interesting, this is good, I want to look more at it, I would invite you, grab a copy of the book, dig into it on your own, go with a friend, go with your significant other, and start having some conversations around this topic. You might be wondering, why would I talk to singles? Well, here's something really interesting. Last March, we did a survey of our church, and on that Sunday, we found out that just under half of our community are single or single again or widowed. Half of our community. But every time I talk about relationships, I always talk to married couples. And then I hope that our singles will somehow learn how to translate that. And I try to be understandable and help you translate it. But the truth is, if half of our community is single, then on this series, I decided I'm going to talk to the singles. And those of you who are married, you can translate it and you can do the work, because we are one larger community. And I had some singles say to me, Kevin, that means so much to me that you're talking to us. I said, wait till the series is over. And then you can tell me if you're glad I talked to you. So anyway, for what it's worth, now I want to be very clear about something, because I was a single guy into my mid-20s, and I was not only living kind of in the rivers and tides of church life, but I was a pastor. I was doing ministry, and I had people look at me with the uncommunicated question that if you're single right now, you've probably experienced at some point in your life in the Christian world. And the uncommunicated expectation was this: there must be something wrong with you because you're single and you're out of college. What's wrong with you? Now, I want to say right up front, my goal, singles, is not to get you in a relationship and not to get you married. That is not my win. And in fact, I want you to know right up front, there is nothing wrong with you. Singleness is great. In fact, there's this guy that we sing about on every Sunday, and his name was Jesus, and he happened to be single. Did you know that? Jesus was single. There's this dude who wrote over half of the New Testament of the Bible, probably the most influential person in the first century in terms of the Christian movement. His name was Paul, and he was single. The church was launched and founded by incredible single women and men. So if you've ever experienced in any church, or especially in our church, someone looking at you and you can just tell they're thinking the question, what's wrong with you that you're still single? Let me tell you, I'm sorry that you've ever felt that. And I want you to know that we believe that single women and men, you are not half of a whole that you're looking for. You are whole in and of yourself. In fact, at New Life, we believe that women and men, single and married, can and should be at all levels of leadership. And in fact, my covering team that sits over me is made up of both married and single women and men, and a single woman is the point leader for that team. So just so you know, we really value singles. That being said, this series is for you if you are single or single again, and you ever want to be unsingle. This series is for you. If you're in a committed relationship and things seem to be going well, and you're thinking, if he likes it, then he should have put a ring on it, this series is for you. If you're living together and you're like, hey, this is pretty good, I might want to move into marriage, this series is for you. If you are a serial dater, playa, if you're a serial dater, this series is not for you. It's not. But at some point, in 10 years, in 20 years, when you decide you'd like to get serious about relationships, I hope you remember this series. Because guys, can I just be honest, and gals, this is true for you too, but especially for guys. Guys, when you're 20 or 30 and you're looking fly and you're going to the bar, it's all fun to be a single guy dating around, but you don't want to be that guy who's 60, hanging out at a bar with pegged pants and a leather jacket and slicked back hair and have 30-year-old women laughing at you. You don't want to be that guy. So, At that point, when you decide, I think serious relationships matter, this series will be for you. I've been in vocational ministry for over 15 years now, which means that I have officiated a lot of weddings. And for the first 5 years, I had a 100% track record. Every couple whose wedding I officiated was still married 5 years later. But I've been in ministry long enough now to see couples who I've married have their marriages end in heartbreak and divorce. And I've been in ministry and I've been alive long enough to see close, dear friends of mine who I was at their wedding see their marriage end in divorce. And there's something that's really interesting that I found. And I don't know if you would agree with this, but I'm telling you, the more I actually just step out and look, I've realized that there's no such thing as marriage problems. That no couple in the history of the world has ever had marriage problems. What there are people problems. And I've known a lot of people with people problems. I'm a people with people problems. Many of us are people with people problems. And then a single person with people problems married another people with people problems. And then there were problems in that relationship, and they looked at each other and said, we have marriage problems. But the truth is they didn't have marriage problems. She had problems, he had problems, they got together and they had problems. Because here's something that's true in all of life, but especially in relationships. The present will one day be your past. Your present, today, will one day be just a story you tell. Our present will one day be your past, but it will present itself in your future. I like to think about it like this, that we're all walking around with an invisible bungee cord tied around our waist to this thing called our past. And we walk, and as we walk, the past, we get more and more tension. And then one day, without knowing it, our past just slingshots into our present, and it impacts our future. Because there are no such things as marriage problems. There are just two married people whose past is still in their present, and it's negatively impacting their future. So in this series, I'm going to do my best over the next 4 weeks, and today I'm just laying the groundwork. I'm going to do my best over the next 4 weeks to debunk some myths about relationships and replace them with what I believe and what the New Testament of the Bible teaches will actually get you what you want, which is a fulfilling and fulfilled, lifelong, committed relationship. But to start off our day today, I need to debunk something called the right person myth. And the right person myth was made popular in the 90s and early 2000s by romantic comedies. Things like Serendipity, Sweet Home Alabama, or my favorite, The Notebook. Any Notebook fans in here? Come on, yeah, you can say it. It's okay. Can't lie, we're in church. Come on, guys, I know you like it. Okay, here's the backstory of The Notebook. And I remember I was 23 years old. It was my first, one of my first years doing college ministry. I had a group of college freshmen, guys and gals together in a dorm on a Friday night. I said, what should we watch? And all of them cried out, The Notebook. We got to watch The Notebook. I'd never seen The Notebook before. And here's the story of The Notebook. Guy and a girl are in high school. They have a summer fling. He's kind of a yokel. She's kind of an up-and-comer. She goes off to college, does her whole life thing. He hangs out in a small town, big fish, small pond. They get together years later, and they get together by this pond. And there are swans in the pond. It's just, swans. And there are lily pads in the pond, and they're rowing on a boat in the pond, and he's doing his thing, rowing his boat, showing off his muscles, Ryan Gosling in the pond. And then they get to the edge of the pond, and it starts to rain. Of course it does. And so as it starts to rain, the camera pans in a circle, swans fly up, and he plants a big old kiss on her right there next to the pond. And I'm telling you, everyone in that room, male, female, everybody was like, oh my, be still my heart. That's what I want. That's what I want. Where's the pond? Where's the Notebook? But I looked at that story and I remembered the rest of the story. Here's the rest of the story of the Notebook. She has a fiance living in a different town who, while she's making out with this country bumpkin yokel high school fling, he's sitting there pretty sure his wife has gotten in a car accident and died, and he's calling all of her friends to try to find her while she's making out, yada, 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 with this guy, and then she leaves him. And all of the people in the room, we ended the Notebook, they were like, yes, that is love. And I looked at them and I said this, no, that, and I got in so much trouble. In fact, one of my friends was a freshman in this group at the time, and she was sitting up here for service, and she just rolled her eyes at me. I said, that is not love, that is emotional porn. I told you your kids could leave. Here's what emotional porn is. We all know what pornography is. Pornography is when we look at a woman, but it actually takes her body or his body, and it cuts it, and it condenses it, and it squeezes it together, and it stretches it, and it gives us a false picture of what human beings look like, and it takes human beings out of the realm of the sacred, women and men created in the image of God, and it turns them into objects for us to desire. And it ruins relationships. Because what it tells us is that real people could never be enough. That airbrushed is everything we need. It distorts our picture of human beings. Emotional porn, romantic comedies, Serendipity, Sweet Home. Sweet Home Alabama is even worse, by the way. In Sweet Home Alabama, again, a country bumpkin, she goes back to this yokel guy. I'm never letting my wife go to a small town, ever, okay? She falls back in love with this yokel dude. She leaves her fiance at the altar. What? And everyone's like, yay, yay, that's so great. No, that's emotional porn. It tells us that real relationships are all about finding the right person. And if you were unlucky enough to marry the wrong person, then when you find the right person, it's time to course correct. Here it is, okay? Here's the myth that I want to debunk, and I hope I can do a good job in helping us with this. The myth is this: if I marry the right person, everything will be all right. If I just marry the right person, everything will be all right. And married people are sitting around, singles, married people are sitting around right now who bought into this myth. You know why? Because of something called chemistry. Chemistry is that, chemistry, listen. Chemistry is when she says, I can't take my eyes off him, and he says, I can't keep my hands off her. That is chemistry. But chemistry, if it wasn't for chemistry is not bad. If it wasn't for chemistry, I'm pretty sure none of us would have ever gotten married. If we're just honest, chemistry draws us together. Chemistry is the thing that has him looking at her and saying, oh, I love how she's so particular about everything when you're first dating. So she notices so much. Chemistry is her looking at him and saying, I love how free and spontaneous he is. He never has a budget, and he just drives up and honks the horn when he wants to see me. That's so romantic. That's chemistry. Chemistry draws us together. Chemistry makes us think that real love is emotion-based, and it is the engine of the train, and the rest of the train just follows it into the station. The problem with chemistry is, over the course of time, it usually wears down a little bit. So a few years into marriage, the chemistry is starting to, I don't know. And that thing that was so cute about her, she's so particular. She points out every little thing. It's like, oh, she's so particular. She points out every little thing. And that thing about him being such a free spirit and no budget, that's so great, becomes he's always out with his buddies and they're spending all our money. And why does he need a new car again? He just bought a new car and he's running us into debt. So couples get here and then they think the chemistry is waning. And then one of them has a great idea. They think, I know what we'll do. Let's have a baby. Because if the chemistry is bad, we should bring another human being into the mix. And the husband's like, well, I like making babies. And so he's like, okay, let's do it. And then they have a baby thinking that will bring them back together. But what happens 5 months into baby land? We realize that babies do 4 things and only 4 things. They eat, they sleep, they poop, they vomit. All the time, every day, the minute you want to go to bed, the minute the chemistry starts to come back, eat, sleep, poop, vomit, and they're always there. Because this is a myth. You know where this myth came from? It came from fairy tales. You know fairy tales. What do fairy tales tell us? Fairy tales tell us that if you find the right person, everything will be all right. Finish this. How does the fairy tale end? And they lived. Have you ever watched a fairy tale? Like critically watched it? I watched, because my kids are young, I watch fairy tales now. Think about this. Snow White. Okay, let's just pick up Snow White. It's a classic fairy tale. Here's a woman who runs off into the forest with someone trying to murder her, runs into the forest, finds this rundown shack with 7 dudes living in it and thinks, that's where I should live. Has odd relationships with animals, has a woman who we all know is a witch come to her house. She dabbles in the occult. She's like, ooh, yummy, Ouija board. She falls into a coma, and then some random dude walks up to her, and while she's in a coma, he starts making out with her. That's weird. And then she wakes up from a coma with this guy making out with her, and she's like, that's the guy I want to marry. How about Cinderella? Oh, Cinderella, come on, Kevin, don't do it to Cinderella. Cinderella, mom and dad, both dead. Stepmother locks her in a tower multiple hours every day. She's got a weird relationship with mice. I don't understand it. She goes to a dance, finds some dude, he shows up on a horse, honks the horn, she jumps on the back and rides off to his house. She's got some major abandonment issues with her family. And I'm telling you, the first time she brings one of those mice into the bedroom, Prince Charming ain't gonna be happy. Happily ever after. Forget about it. Okay, this is my favorite. Beauty and the Beast. Okay. That's borderline bestiality. Can we just be honest? Like, weird. No? Okay. How about this? He's a rageaholic. He locks her up in a cage, makes her his slave because her dad picked a rose, and then while she's his slave in a cave and he's screaming at her, if she doesn't eat with me, she doesn't eat with anybody. She starts to think, I think I'm falling in love with this guy. Okay. He belongs in prison for domestic violence. But how's it end? And they lived happily ever after. That is a load of garbage. So my whole win, and by the way, we're getting to the Bible. If you're like, we're getting there. We're getting there. My whole win for today, though, because when I do a teaching series, week 1 is just setting the foundation for where we're going. My win today is to debunk the fairy tale myth that tells me if I can find the right person, everything will be all right. I want to compare and contrast 2 different ideas. The first is finding the right person versus becoming the right person. See, this one will actually get you what you want. This one is where true unity is found, where kind of going the distance is found. Becoming the right person is all about recognizing that the engine of the train is not emotion. Emotion is the caboose of the train. The engine is actually driven by a very different thing, and eventually emotion comes in to the room. Now, what do I mean by this? Well, I remember when I was in college, I dated a woman for 2 years. She broke up with me, rightly so, she should have, but it broke my heart. Have you had your heart broken? Like, broken heart. I cried, like, multiple nights a week for a semester. Now, I will say this, I got the best grades in college ever that semester, because all I did was cry and study. It was lovely, But she broke my heart. So I went to my pastor, and she said to me, my pastor, she said to me, Kevin, for as long as I've known you, and she'd known me for about 2.5 years at that point, you've always, or 3.5 years, you've always had a relationship. And from what you've told me, you've been a serial dater since you hit puberty. Always dating someone after someone after someone. I was a serial monogamist all the way through. And you laugh, but I'm telling you, from fifth grade on, it was rare that I was single for more than 2 months. She looked me in the eye and she said, Kevin, the best thing you can do for yourself right now, because I'm thinking, it's back on the market. I know how I'll heal this pain. Just throw somebody else into the mix. The best thing you can do for yourself, Kevin, is take a year off of dating. And I said, I'm sorry. Did you say a week off of dating? That seems like a long time. The best thing you can do for yourself, Kevin, is take a year off of dating and do 2 things in that year. 1, heal. You're hurting. Heal. And 2, start to become the kind of person that the person you're looking for is looking for. So I took her advice. I took a year off of dating. That year became almost 3 years where I didn't date anybody. And this was at a time, and come on, 20-somethings, talk to me. Married, single people, talk to me. This was at a time when all of my friends were getting out of college, they were in serious relationships, and they were getting married. I spent Friday night after Friday night after Friday night by myself because all of my buddies had girlfriends, and they were all going on double dates and group dates. And it was hard, but it was the best decision I ever made. Because almost 3 years later, I met this smoking hot babe named Maria Slevin. And I was the kind of guy that she would actually want to date. I say it like this. Let me ask you this question. Are you currently the person that the person you're looking for is looking for? Because here's a little secret that married people know, single people. You know how you're looking for the right person, assuming they'll make everything all right? Guess what? That person is actually assuming the same thing about you. They're assuming that when they find you, you'll make everything all right. And 2 people who have that assumption about each other get into that relationship, and when they realize that the other person can't make everything all right, they try to fix the other person to get the other person to make everything all right. So let me ask you, single people, are you the person you're looking for is looking for? I spent 3 years healing, understanding who I was in relationship to my Heavenly Father, and exploring who I was in my personhood as a single people. And I say this, I've said this since I was, 23 years old, since I was in this experiment. I've told people, take a year off dating. Some of you singles, if you're a serial monogamist, if you're always relationship after relationship after relationship, take a year off dating. I've said it, I don't know how many times. I've had one person take me up on it, one that I know of. And 3 months into him taking me up on it, he met the girl of his dreams, and he cursed my name. I said, hey, bud, stay the course. He stayed the course. At the end of that year, probably to the day, they started dating. They're now married with 2 kids, and he's told me that was probably the best thing I could have done for my marriage. Because in that year, I was becoming. If you become the person you're looking for is looking for, they'll wait around for you. Maria says to me sometimes, by the way, Maria and I are going to celebrate 12 years of marriage next month. You don't have to clap, but you probably should. Okay, thank you. 12 years. And sometimes she'll say to me, Kevin, how did you figure this stuff out? She's talking about kind of the internal emotional stuff. Because you seem a little bit further ahead of me. And Maria dated all the way through until she and I started dating. Not inappropriately so, she just dated. That's what 20-somethings do. And in that 3 years while she was dating, I invested that 3 years understanding what it meant to be a single human being, a person without having another person in proximity to me. Singles, I want to invite you. I think the best thing you could do if you're single and you're a serial dater is invest a year of your life, not hunting for the right person, not searching for the right person, not even praying for the right person. Oh, now I got your attention. Listen, how sad would it be if you prayed and prayed and prayed for God to bring you the right person, and God brought you the right person, and the right person looked at you and said, you're no one that I want to date? I would invite you to invest your time as a single becoming the right person, so that when the right person comes along, you're the right person for them. Here's some good news. the Bible doesn't have a whole lot to say about how to hunt for the right person. There's one story in the Old Testament of the Bible about a dude who's on a camel and he gets to a well and he says, God, show me the woman I'm supposed to marry if she waters my camel at the well. The woman comes along, it's a sign, they get married. So listen to me, if you have a camel and you find a well, go ahead and ask God to show you the right woman, okay? Go for it. If you don't have a camel, you're out of luck. Instead, the Bible has a ton to say about becoming the kind of person that the person you're looking for is looking for. Married people, I'm about to talk about this, but listen, this is not just for singles. I want you to ask this in your marriage. Am I becoming the kind of person that my spouse needs, wants, desires? Am I doing everything I can as far as depends on me to bring the best of me to the table? So there's this chapter written by a guy who we're pretty sure is single. He may have been married at one point, and his wife might have died. We don't know for sure. His name is Paul, and he writes this little chapter in a letter called 1 Corinthians that if you've been to a wedding, you've probably heard it, but I want to re-envision it a little bit because he talks about what love actually looks like and how to become a person that the person you're looking for is looking for. And in fact, in your programs, I gave you a little a graphic, and on the back of it, it has the entire verse. If you don't have one, if it missed your program, it should be in the back of the room. But it talks about this. So you can follow along here. You can follow along up on the screens. And here's what I would say to you. As we're looking at this, I want you to take it home this week and put it somewhere. If you're married, put it somewhere where you will actually read it before you see your significant other. Put it on your mirror. Put it in the bathroom. We all know, okay? Put it in the bath. Is that too much? Put it in the bathroom and read it. Put it by your coffee. If you're single, I want you to put this wherever you get ready for a date. And look at it and read it and ask yourself, am I becoming? And if there's a spot in here where you think, oh, that's not really me, this is where you would say to God, God, help me become this kind of person. So Paul starts it off like this. He says, love is patient. Love is patient. What is patient? See, your married friends, single people, your married friends thought, when I find the right person, I won't have to be patient anymore because they're the right person, right? They're nervously laughing right now. Patience says, I don't always have to be pushing. I don't have to push the issue. I don't have to push the timeline. I don't have to push the conversation. I'm patient. I'm telling you, the person you're looking for is looking for someone who is patient. Love is, he says, kind. Another word for kind would be considerate. Love is considerate. What's consideration? Consideration is, guys, you take a girl out on a first date, and partway through the date, you realize there's not going to be a second date. But you drive her home, and you're trying to be, considerate. So you say, hey, I had a great time. I'll call you. And then you, considerate, kind. Considerate means that you call her. And you say to her, hey, I had a really nice time. Honestly, I don't see this going anywhere, so I just wanted to say thank you for that night. I really enjoyed it, and I wish you all the best. And guys, you're thinking, no one does that. Who does that? I don't owe her that. Friends, it's not about her. It's about you becoming someone who is love. It's not about her. You just get to practice kindness with her. Love does not envy. Envy says, if I feel bad about me, then I need to make sure that you feel bad about you so I can feel better about me. Envy says, the minute I feel insecure about the way I look, the job I have, the amount of money I make, my personality, my size, my weight, my bald spot, whatever. Envy says, the minute I feel that, I can't allow you to shine because your shining just makes me feel worse about me. The only way I know how to break envy is to allow other people to shine. Let her tell the whole story. Let him tell the story incorrectly without correcting him. Let him shine. Let her shine. When they get a promotion at work, be happy for them, not insecure about you. Love isn't envious. How about this? Love doesn't boast. Love is not proud. Boasting sees the opposite sex as a conquest and a story to tell. But that's not love. Love is considerate and kind. It's not boastful. It's not proud. It is humble. Love doesn't dishonor. Here's dishonoring. Ladies, a guy takes you out on a first date. He shows up. He doesn't look that great. He's not very well put together. He says, hey, babe, we're heading to Taco Bell. He takes you to Taco Bell, and then he says, I got a special treat. We're going to the cheap theaters in Santa Rosa to see a movie you've already seen. I'll even spring for a small popcorn. And then he calls up an Uber and says, hey, I'm going out with my buddies, so hop in the Uber. He'll take you home. And then you have to pay for your own Uber ride. Worst date ever. Ladies, what do you do in that moment? If you go home to your girlfriends and you say, that was the worst date ever, that guy was a chump. He took me to Taco Bell. He wouldn't even let me buy a chalupa. It was horrible. He took me to the cheap movie theaters to see a movie I never wanted to see. He didn't look good. He didn't smell good. He made me hop into an Uber to go home. That guy was horrible. I liked the Uber driver better than I liked that guy. That is you dishonoring that man. Yes, he needs to learn how to take you on a date. Absolutely. But how we talk about him afterwards, does he deserve it? That's really irrelevant. It's not about him. It's about you becoming the kind of woman. Because listen, when you get married, your husband or your wife, they're going to act like a chump sometimes. And if you go to your buddies or your girlfriends and you slam your spouse because that's all you did in dating, that is dishonoring. A couple other words. You could say this: love does not behave disgracefully. Ladies, wouldn't it be lovely to go out with a guy and not have to worry about how the date was going to end? Wouldn't it be lovely if he offered to pay? And he doesn't have to. By the way, ladies, you can offer to pay. Come on. Fellas, you can cheer. But if he offers to pay and you don't even wonder if there's an ulterior motive, wouldn't that be lovely? Wouldn't it be lovely to get to the end of a night and not be concerned that he might press his advantage? Love is patient. Love does not act disgracefully. It got really quiet. All right, single friends. Lean in. Come on, lean in. I wish a pastor would have loved me enough to have a conversation like this when I was a single person. Because you know what? I had a lot of acting disgracefully, dishonorably. And I had to go back to a lot of people after I became a follower of Jesus and in the years after that and apologize. What does it look like to not act dishonorably? It's you being able to say, I might be a lot of things, but I will not be a regret. When she tells her story about dating me, when he tells his story about dating me, I might be a lot of things, but I will not be a regret in their life. Acting honorably means that when you guys break up, you don't have to duck them in the grocery store. You don't have to maneuver church services so you don't see each other. There's nothing wrong with dating. Dating is good. I like dating. There was this whole trend in the late 90s that came from this book called I Kissed Dating Goodbye. And it was this whole thing where women were like, I'm not going to date anybody. Jesus is my boyfriend. I wanted to be theologically incorrect. Okay? Not your boyfriend. Never will be. He's too good for you. Sorry. No? Okay. But they were like, I don't need to date anybody. Jesus is my boyfriend. I'm like, okay. If dating's done right, dating is a gift. Dating is you learning how to be the kind of person the person you're looking for is looking for. Acting with honor means you never have to be a regret, even if you're an ex. Wouldn't that be awesome? To be able to walk into a church service and see your ex and not have to be nervous of what they're thinking, what they might say to your current. Oh man, that's freeing. That's freeing. Right now, some of you are thinking, this is like the most boring date ever. Honor and love and patience. Let me ask you a question. If your parents are divorced, let me ask you this question. Would it have changed anything in your parents' marriage if they were a little more patient with each other? Would it have changed anything if your dad was a little bit more considerate to your mom? Would it have changed anything if your mom was a little kinder to your dad? Yeah, this isn't sexy. You know what this is? This is the foundation for real relationships. This is the difference between a flash in a pan emotion and a lifelong commitment. And that's what I want for you. Love is not, he goes on to say, love is not self-seeking. Yeah, but isn't the purpose of dating to seek after the right person? According to fairy tales, according to movies, according to the world at large, yes. But that's not your purpose in dating. Your purpose in dating is about becoming the right person. So that when you find the right person, that person gives you the time of day. I love the way that Paul wraps this up. Now listen, he's talking about love. And then he almost switches gears, and you're thinking, what are you talking about, Paul? But remember, he's talking about love. He says this. He says, when I was a child, I talked like a child. Well, of course you did. You were a child. I thought like a child. Obviously, that's what children do. They think like children. I reasoned like a child. Yes, we get it. Think like a child. Act like a child. Reason like a child. When I became a man or a woman, when I became an adult, I put away childhood. I put the ways of childhood behind me. And he's talking about love here. What does childhood romance tell us? And they lived happily ever after. You know the crazy paradox of grown-up love is that in order to live happily ever after, you have to put away your childhood version of love. We put it away. And that gives us the best shot of living happily ever after. Because we're becoming the kind of people the person that you're looking for is looking for. Next week, single fellas, where are you? You don't have to raise your hand, but you can. We also, in our survey, found out there's a lot more single ladies than single fellas in the church. So you guys, you're welcome. Okay. Single fellas, listen, next week, single fellas, do not miss next week. Next week, I'm going to tell you how you don't have to be the most attractive, you don't have to have the best job, you don't have to drive the best car, you don't have to have the most money. I'm going to tell you the thing you need to do if you want to be head and shoulders above everybody else. Listen, ladies might want to date Rico Suave, but they want to marry Nice Ned, okay? Seriously. Fellas, I'm telling you, come next week. I'm going to give you the secret. It doesn't matter if you're tall, you're short, you're skinny, you're less. It does not matter if you have a high-paying job or you live in a van down by the river. If you do this thing, fellas, all the girls will be like, I want him, he's the best. Ladies, single ladies, oh, I'm a single ladies. Oh, I'm a single ladies. Single ladies, where are you? Throw your hands up. Okay, single ladies, listen. You got to be here next week because you deserve a guy like the guy we're talking about. You got to be here. Moms and dads, if you have teenage sons, beg them, bribe them, force them to be here. If you have teenage daughters, for their sake, bring them here. Listen, if your daughters have boyfriends, put them in the front row. Okay? Next week's message is entitled Gentlemen's Club. You do not want to miss it. Let me pray for us, then we'll wrap our time up. Jesus, would you help us to become the women and the men that you had in mind when you designed us for our joy and for your glory? We pray in Jesus' name, amen. Hey, you guys have a great week. See you next time.